Hello, Producer Rati, I'm Jazz Galati, and welcome back to this Interference Cast, where we take a slight non-clinical detour. It's with our friend Dr. Rupert Monkhouse from #Impression Club. Listen, if you don't follow this guy on Instagram, you are missing out. This guy is like making removable prosthodontics sexy again, and you may remember him way back in episode 73, where we discussed lower complete suction dentures, right? So this guy is a wizard, you need to check him out, and today we're talking about something a little bit different. Rupert actually works quite close to me, so we met up, and I like to hear his stories of how he got his first, or not his first associate position, but where he's at the moment, a beautiful practice. And it very much covers this theme, which is a question I get a lot, which is like, how do I go about getting my first associate position? And just if you scroll down on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, I did an episode recently, how to get an associate position in 4 minutes. Okay, so if you haven't seen that, please check it out. But essentially, this is a story of how I got my first associate position. It's a story of how Rupert got his first associate position, and how the relevant theme here is to be proactive. Nothing will happen if you're reactive. So if you're reactive, you wait for things to happen and then you will respond. Whereas when you're proactive, you are forcing change. You are a force to be reckoned with. You are actually a master of your own ship. You are in charge of your own destiny. Does that make sense? This is what it's all about. So the message and the lessons from this episode will hopefully inspire you to change the way you look at the world and look at dentistry and look at your career options to hopefully put yourself in a better position going forward. Let's catch the main interview with Rupert, and I'll catch you in the outro. Rupert, #Impression Club Monkhouse, welcome back to the Protrusive podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Cheers for having me back. It was a year on from the first time.
Yeah, it must be a year. How fast time flies. If you haven't listened to Rupert's episode on suction lower complete dentures, you must listen to it. It is something that is so useful for anyone who's looking to improve their overall complete dentures, but we focused on a very tricky area, a lower complete denture, and Rupert did such a great job of that, so do check that one out. Today is a slightly different theme. Me and Rupert had a little meet-up at a Turkish restaurant in Pangbourne. It was great Turkish food, so if you're in that neck of the wood, go to that place near Rupert's, where Rupert works, near Woodborough House. It's called Ladi? What's it called?
Yeah. Ladi, yeah.
Wow, phenomenal. The Adana was amazing. And so we were talking, and Rupert told me the story of how he got his first ever associate position. I was like, wow, this story needs to be heard. And there's some lessons that we can extrapolate from this story. So Rupert, my friend, first just introduce yourself to those who didn't listen to that episode, and to probably like the 2 people listening to this podcast who don't already follow you on Instagram. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're about, and then we'll go from there and lead to your story, my friend.
So my name's Rupert. As Jazz said, I was on talking about some complete dentures last time. So I'm a general dentist. I qualified from King's 5 years ago now, and my main area of interest is removable prosthodontics, or prosthodontics overall, and I share lots of that on Instagram on my page Dentist Rupert. And since doing our episode a year ago on here, that gave me the kick and the confidence to launch my own sort of platform that I've been thinking about for a while, called Impression Club Live. Impression Club was a sort of bit where people were sharing impressions, and then it just sort of spiraled into, essentially, it's another dental podcast. People come on Instagram, it's a live chat, more like a FaceTime kind of thing, and we cover a bit of everything. And now there's a newsletter and a website and all sorts. So it's it's gone a bit crazy in the year since I had you on, but you were the catalyst, man. You inspired me to do it, so I owe you that.
You're taking it in a beautiful direction. I love what you're doing. So please, guys, check out impressionclub.co.uk. There's a big old subscribe button and a beautiful photography of a denture, I believe. Lovely photo of that. Rupert's photography is also just phenomenal. His case documentation. So follow Rupert on Instagram. Check out the website impressionclub.co.uk. Register for a newsletter and check out the podcast on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's on all the main platforms. So if you like Protrusive, you will love Impression Club.
Very, very kind, man. But yeah, it was cool when we were chatting the other week about it, and it wasn't quite my first position. My actual first position, NHS position,
right,
it beat me by about 2 months. But yeah, essentially, I mean, It's the position that I'm in now. You mentioned it earlier where we met at Woodborough House. So coming out of King's, I went up to FD up in Hull. I didn't do very well. Yeah.
I want to just build some context here. I just want to build a bit of context because people need to know the kind of practice that Woodborough House is. It's in a beautiful area. It's a fantastic private practice. Your principal is this all-singing, all-dancing prosthodontist who does these amazing big cases. He has a freaking module. Okay, so if you guys don't know what a module is, it's the closest thing that you can use to basically get a motion tracking of the TMJ of the jaw. And you, again, Rupert covered this in one of his Instagram lives. So if you want to see it in action, check out one of his Instagram lives. But the kind of kit this practice has is beautiful. I had, you very kindly gave me a little tour. What a great vibe of the practice that you have. So this isn't your average practice. This is a beautiful practice that any dentist would love to work in. So the crux of it is dentists are messaging me saying there's a lack of opportunities. How do I get this all singing, all dancing practice position? So this is where I've just built some context. So how did Rupert at such a young age get the position? Now the story will absolutely blow your mind.
Yes, I mean, it all started when I went up to my FD. So I finished at King's, went up to FD, I went up to Hull, East Riding of Yorkshire, because I did very, very badly in national recruitment, and I thought it was the end of the world and all of that, but I actually had the best time, the best year, and I think that also comes into the theme of the story overall. So I ended up there, and actually I've landed in a fantastic practice. I mean, we talked about it in our episode of Completes, and it had the lab, and they let me do what I wanted and things like that. And the deanery for Yorkshire wrote, I think it was in a pretty much early, the first sort of month, saying we've got these 2 tickets for an FGDP study day down in Birmingham on, I don't know what it was, Friday the 10th of November or whatever. And I'm from Worcester down the road, so I was like, yeah, why not? I'll apply for that. If I win that, I can go home on the Thursday night, see the folks, pop down to Birmingham on the Friday, come back for the weekends. Great, I'll do that. So I applied for those tickets and I won those tickets and went off down to Birmingham. And at the time, I was really interested in paediatrics. I like the bookends of general dentistry. I've got the dentures and the paediatrics because again, my practice up there had a charity. It runs a charity that I still do some work with, although COVID curtailed it a bit, called Teeth Team, where you go into schools and they supply brushes and they do supervised brushing, and then you go in twice a year and do a DMFT and all that kind of stuff. So I was really enjoying peds and wanted to go down that avenue, maybe special interest or whatever. And it was a holistic dentistry, put the mouth back in the body kind of FGDP day. And there was a guy doing peds, and he was actually the consultant from Leeds, and I'd had the study day with him 3 weeks ago or whatever, and I chatted to him at the time, and I wanted to go and chat to him a bit more, having thought about it, and said, you know what, I want to explore this and maybe look at a master's or something like that. But it was one of those hour and a half talks, and then there's a 30-minute coffee break, and I sort of sat there going, oh, there's a bit of a queue, I don't really want to go, and then I got sort of 10 minutes to go, and I thought, you know what, I need to just go and do this. So went up and stood in the queue and started chatting to him. I'm enjoying this. We chatted a few weeks ago. I want to explore it. And then this woman, just as they do, not a lot of time left in the queue, sort of just joined in the conversation. And the three of us were just chatting away. And her point was that his presentation had been mainly about paediatrics, high needs, being in low socioeconomic areas. And as you mentioned, with the area of Woodborough House, it's a pretty well-off area. And she went, well, actually, she did all the paediatrics at Woodborough and said, well, actually, I see a lot of kids from, not a low socioeconomic status, and they still have a high dental need. So maybe it's not exactly right. But we got chatting, and then it was, Avi Banerjee's coming on to talk about composite. Everyone take your seats, da-da-da. And as we're walking back to our seats, she said, where do you work? And I said, Hull. And she said, do you want to move to Reading? And I laughed it off and sat on down and listened to Abby and whoever else came on after. I think Ian Chappell did some perio after or something. It was fantastic. And then, 3-4 hours later at the end of the day, she tracked me down at my table, the other end of the room, and said, no, seriously, do you want to move to Reading? And I said, well, I'm an FD, so I'm looking for a job in September. This was November of FD, so I've been graduated 2 months at this point. And I said, well, I'll be looking for a job in September. And she said, great, here's my card. And a bit more context, she's from New Zealand, her and her husband Nick from New Zealand, so all private dentistry there. Nick, he always loves to tell me that when they moved here, they moved to Earl's Court, as all New Zealanders do apparently. And he worked in the NHS for a day and gave in his notice and left as soon as he could, and was just like, no. So they'd been in private practice for 15 years. So they have no real context of what an FD was, that it meant I was probably 23, which I was, and all that kind of stuff. But she just liked how I spoke to this consultant, essentially. And gave me a card and we started chatting a little bit.
I mean, that's the key thing to pick there. Of all the things, she just liked the way you spoke. Like, what did he even say? Like, what, was it just that you are polite? You're a polite young Englishman, or what was it?
I think probably just that. I just spoke to a consultant well, and I don't know, mate. I can't remember what we talked about. And I knew it was about wanting to do special interest, but I don't know, just the way I spoke to this consultant. And I think looking at it now, not one to jump ahead, but essentially as I transitioned through, she retired last year and I became full-time in her position, basically because I think she saw herself in me and nurtured me over the 3 years to then take over her list. So I think that was partly it. We just sort of clicked, and that was it. But that was the November, and then she actually called me. I think I was on holiday. I think it was in Italy. She called me that summer at the end of my FD, and she was in Italy as well with. There was a big group of dentists out there. I can't remember what it was, but there's quite a few famous dentists out there. Slaney was out there and things, and I think it was about mentorship. And that email got in her head, and she called me and said, "Do you want to come and do some Saturdays?" And at the time, I was in my first full job, which was I'd just taken a job in Fulham, down the road from where I live now, ironically, in a big NHS practice. I was doing 5 days a week and alternate Saturdays, and I sort of looked at that and went, I haven't really, but go on then, I'll do my other alternate Saturday mornings in Pangbourne as well, because I just thought, you know what, this is a great
so at this time,
opportunity.
let's just pause there. So at the time, you committed to working every Saturday, basically, because you're already doing a Saturday at the other practice. So you pretty much committed to working every Saturday, which no young dentist wants to do, really. No one ever, and forget young dentists, any dentist wants to really do that. But you saw an opportunity here, and I think it's great that that came upon you. We'll dissect that a little bit later, but how that came to you, what lessons we can draw from it, and how we can now apply some of that magic to people listening and watching. You put yourself in a position where you're going to be overworking in a way. How did that make you feel? And what about any relationships you were in at the time? It does put a strain. All this working as a dentist 6 days a week. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. And when I look back at it now, I'm just like, that was crazy. But it's got me into the position that I'm in. I mean, the good bit is that I was living, as I still do, in Fulham. And it was as we were chatting before we started recording, it's a 10-minute walk to the practice, and it was pretty reasonable 9 to 5 hours in Fulham and things like that. The odd 12 till 8 or 2 till 8 or whatever, but on a Monday. But even on that Saturday, I was working 8 until 12 or 1, or 12:30, I think it was. I'd be home by 1 o'clock. It wasn't that big. Whereas trekking out to Reading on a Saturday, I won't get back until 3:30, 4 o'clock. It was those days that were the sacrifice, not the Saturdays in Fulham. But there was that benefit that I saw of doing it, and it was great to 1 year out, or not, literally straight out of FD. I started, I think the November then I started that. So 2 months after finishing FD, I started doing these Saturdays, and to be in that kind of environment, albeit with none of the other specialists and things there, because it was a Saturday, it was still being in that environment, having that patient base, and having the sort of support of that team around you was definitely it was just a massive plus.
Did you find that you were crapping yourself a little bit? Did you have imposter syndrome? Did you feel like, oh my goodness, am I really about to do this? Tell us about those kind of thoughts, if you had them. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I still have them. Like, I think no one doesn't have those thoughts, man. I think, it was, the nice thing was that when I went into the position, Sarah's very good and just said, you know what, just treat people the way that I know you will, and it will come. And there's nothing in terms of the work, and this is again the really great bit about Woodborough, or a place like Woodborough for young clinicians, because we've got endo, pros, perio, oral surgery, ortho. We've got pretty much every specialty bar like oral med and peds, ironically. We've got a registered specialist and everything else, that actually you can just sit there and go, you know what, I just want to do posterior composites. That's all I want to do. I'm going to get good at it. I'm going to do it. And now, well, we've got Celine now, so I don't have to do those either if I don't want to. And you don't have to do anything you don't feel comfortable with, because, and you can just turn, and she said, just use the line, you go, look, but this is it's not a cheap practice. We've got someone here who's even better than me. You may as well pay them a little bit more and do it with them, because they'll do a fantastic job. They love doing this. It's like anterior composite bonding stuff. We've got, a couple who love doing it. And I just go, you know what, I'm going to sit there stressing out over it. He's going to love it and spend all day polishing them. Go and see him. So there was no pressure to do anything. And a lot of that early Saturdays was a few nice family checkups, a few emergencies, which, you can never really go wrong with, an emergency, an extirpation. They're always going to be grateful that you've seen them on a Saturday and all that. So that was a nice way to do it. I think if I'd gone into like a full list on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that would have been a lot trickier. And maybe in a practice where you don't have that support, and it's just, you mentioned again about Nick, and it's not that often that Nick will do a full course of the treatment. They'll see the endodontist, they'll see the periodontist. That's just the ethos of the practice, is whoever's the best person to do that bit of the treatment, they'll see. So there's no expectation that you're going to have to go in and get a massive OPG and do a full mouth rehab. You just haven't got to do it. That's not the way it works, which helps.
That's great. And so I want to find out more about when that sort of initial encounter happened with your soon-to-be principal at that talk at the FGDP. What lesson can we sort of pass on to those listening and watching? Well, I think that it's a lesson of, and to the simple mind, you can take a step back and say, you know what, some might say Rupert got lucky, and you could say that. I think there's always an element of luck, like who you get married to at the end is based on a little bit of luck, being at the right place at the right time. So there's always a little bit of that, but it's more. I'm a big fan of you make your own luck. So the fact that you applied for those tickets, the fact that you stood up and you were thinking, oh, should I go, should I not? But you did. You went there and you conducted yourself the way you're a charming man, and that's shown through. And first impressions are everything, not just with dentures, but in life in general. So I think that has a lot to do with it, and being proactive. What kind of advice do you give to our younger colleagues listening? I know we're both fairly young as well, but for some people who are just looking for that ideal associate position that hasn't come along yet, what kind of advice could you give to someone listening and wanting that inspiration, wanting that oomph?
Well, I think from my sort of perspective, doing those Saturdays, the reason why she asked me to do those Saturdays is because, as she went, none of our associates want to do Saturdays. They're all they're that little bit older, or they've got their 2 kids or whatever. They don't want to do Saturdays, and that's true of a lot of private practices. They don't want to do Saturdays. They also don't want to do Wednesdays or whatever. So whenever people ask me, I always say, go and research 5-10 practices in your area that look fantastic, and just go to them and say, look, do you want someone to work on a Saturday? Because probably they do. And they'll want to take that. They'll want to take that on. But 100% say, yeah, I definitely got lucky. But yeah, I made my own luck by thinking, you know what, I'm going to go for this. It's the same as rocking up to somewhere like the BACD conference or the ITI conference or tubules or whatever it is. You go out into these environments, and we always say that cliche of like dentistry is a really small world, and it is. And if you look at the bubble of the online dentistry, it's an even smaller world. But those are also the circles of people that tend to go to BACDs and things like that. So, go off to these events, because one, it's good for you from a CPD perspective and social, and get out of your little box surgery and meet other people. But yeah, it's a small world. So make sure you're representing yourself well, because good news travels just as, or if not slower than bad news travels. And yeah, put yourself out there and just have a look around.
I totally agree, and I think to add to that, I think don't be shy, and to use an old cliche, your network is your net worth. So the amount of CPD sessions, Section 63 they used to call them, those freebie ones in the evening in London, the amount of those I went to was insane during my FD year. And so at the time, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, she was studying in Liverpool, and so I didn't have to worry about seeing her until the weekend. So I had the free reign during the week to go to as many of these events as I could, and even the weekends, Fridays, as many free courses, cheap courses I could get my hands on, I would. Any opportunity to network, I would. But more than networking, I just was there to learn. And what happens is that you like, just like you said, you strike up these conversations, you find that you get a bit of luck, you find yourself somewhere at the right place at the right time, and things happen. But if you don't put yourself out there, if you're going to be too reserved, or make his life very comfortable, like just I'll just sit here with my mates, my FD mates, I'm not going to go and speak to someone new today, then where are those opportunities going to come from? So one thing I wanted to add here is a story of when I got my job at Richmond. So for those of you know, I worked at Richmond with a guy called Hap Gill, amazing dentist. Like, he treats some brilliant celebrities you wouldn't even imagine. Great inspiration, lovely practice by the river. They call it the Richmond Riviera. So it's a great place. And I would have bitten someone's hand off if they had that opportunity came to me earlier, basically. So it was a practice that anyone would love to work at. And so eventually I got the job after I came back from Singapore. But even that was in 2017. But 6 years before that, in 2011, I was just tweeting, because at the time I was on Twitter a lot. I'm not anymore. I haven't got time with Twitter. But at the time I was tweeting, and I was just striking conversations. And there's one of these conversations I struck up happened to be this all singing, all dancing, we use that term a lot today, dentist in Richmond, who I developed a relationship with online. And then one thing led to another. We just stayed in touch. So that is probably a more new age Instagram generation, social media generation example of how things can eventually work out for you, wouldn't you say?
No, absolutely. And moving down the track of that journey a little bit more, I did those Saturdays, and then I think it was about a year later, so 2019, I think again November, I don't know why everything happens to me in November, I started doing Wednesdays. I started doing Wednesdays and just working with Nick. So it was sort of, so I just went, this will be really good. Come in and just shadow Nick. You enjoy pros, come and shadow Nick on a Wednesday. It's his consultation day. He'll fit the odd implant crown, fit the odds, set of crowns, but no surgery or things like that. But just come on in and shadow that. And I was like, well, I need to drop a day and at my NHS and all that. And they were, obviously very supportive with that. And essentially just sort of sorted that. And then I spent what would end up being 6 months with, obviously then COVID came in 2020, but I did 6 months of doing those mornings, and then my Saturdays started to get full. So then I started seeing patients on the Wednesday afternoon as well. And then eventually it became all Wednesdays. And then just as lockdown happened, I left my NHS job to start a part-time job in Worcester, where I'm from. And that was through Instagram. So that was the Tom Crawford Clark's practice, Shrubbery Dental. It's his family's practice, and he just put on Instagram, literally on story, we're looking for an associate. And again, just sort of went, you know what, I'm going to go for that. A couple of phone calls later, shoot down to Worcester and have a meeting, and end up going to work there. And unfortunately had to leave that place after a year, because then Sarah said, when I said I was going to retire at the end of 2023, I think she said, it's going to be like next week. So I had to finish that quickly, and literally, I think she said, end of 2020, end of 2022, and then she just turned around. I think, as a lot of people did, sort of COVID-wise, and just went, nah, I don't really. I'm not sure. I think, and again, it was sort of stuck between doing the business and running the practice and doing dentistry and all that stuff. And I think I'd earned my stripes or whatever by then, and got the opportunities to then go in and replace her fully, which, looking all the way back to it, became the sort of master plan, I guess, was that I was going to be molded into this replacement. But that other job came through Instagram, and I've got people who get it through maybe not dental Twitter anymore. I know that's still a thing, but it's a bit more political, isn't it? But definitely Instagram's a good place just to keep an eye on the ground. And again, people know you through, whether it's personality, your work, through your digital portfolio. It's an easy foot in the door, isn't it?
a great point in terms of use the term digital portfolio, because nowadays more and more dentists, especially younger dentists, new qualified, they're journaling their dental progress on their Instagram. And I've known plenty of colleagues who've gotten their jobs because someone just messaged them saying, hey, I like your work, I like your composites, come and work for me. Because they see that, okay, if this dentist is taking time to A, photograph so meticulously their work, and B, the hardest step is B, which is share it to the world. The first time you post a case, as me and you are, been doing this for a while now. But if you remember the first time, I remember the first time I posted a case. I was shitting myself, man. I was like, oh my God, what's the world going to think and whatnot. So to put yourself out there is a big step. And when you get comfortable and you see that the world hasn't exploded by you posting a case, then you start posting a few more, and then it's okay to take some criticism and you learn and stuff, and that's okay. But I think that shows that, okay, I'm meticulous. I like to document. You take a lot of those zoomed in shots and you show to someone that, you know what, I care about little details. I care about my what I'm doing. I care about how I roll the marginal ridge and all those little things. So attention to detail really shines through. So that's the digital portfolio. But just to take a step back, there is still a role of the classic way, i.e. one of the other jobs I got very early on as a DCT in hospital. I wanted a Saturday job, so I didn't de-skill. So then I just rocked up at my local practice, even though they weren't hiring. I just gave in my CV, dressed up smart on a Saturday, had a polite conversation with the receptionist, and lo and behold, also in November, Rupert, he picked up the phone and said, okay, I need a new associate, come and get a job. So there are those traditional ways as well. Do it. And I think your advice, in case someone missed it, your advice of the top 10 practices that you want to work for in your vicinity, go out there, and if that job advert doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. You make your argument compelling. You say, I'm willing to work Saturdays. I'm willing to do this. I'm hungry for knowledge. I'm hungry to learn. This is me. I'm smiling. Look at me. I can, I'd love to work for you, kind of thing. So that is going to be a great way to help a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And it just shows as I say, the photography stuff, as you say, is important. But yeah, putting yourself out there and willing to learn, and even just things saying, can I come and shadow every other Tuesday or something, because it's easy when you've just come, you're early on in your career, you're worrying more about your earnings and things like that. But doing a bit of shadowing like that is going to be so valuable. And think even my sessions with Nick those mornings, and I got essentially salaried to be there and things like that, and which was of course helped it. But I took so much away from just being in that environment, because even on my Saturdays, it was me and a hygienist, that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily see as much of how the specialists or the more experienced general dentists would be with the patients and how they put things across, and even sitting there watching Nick put a plan together and do a letter, and suddenly you're seeing a 4 or 5 page you make it clears or whatever, really extensive thinking and putting it across like that. I think that learning things like that is so valuable as well. And again, it just shows that you're willing to get in there and be a part of it. But I think, the biggest piece of advice clearly is be on your A game in November, because everything happens. So we've got another 7-8 months to get on point for November.
Very good, very good. Now, you reminded me of something. I had a chat with Paul Goodman recently. Episode at the time of recording this hasn't been published yet, but he's the head of Dental Nachos, and he, made a really good point that when you ask someone if you could shadow them, that person who's allowing you to come to your clinic is doing you a huge favor, like enormous favor. When I have a dentist shadow me, I'm going to be slower. It's going to take me more time. I love it personally, but it does take me more time, more effort. I have to make sure that I have things a bit more structured, and I've checked my diary in advance to make sure that that dentist is well cared for, and the team can look after them as well. So when a dentist allows you to shadow them, they're doing you a massive favor. So A, don't be afraid of rejection. Ask if you can shadow. And B, if the dentist doesn't reply or you get a no, don't take that to heart. Okay, it's a big deal to let someone come into your clinic, come into your space, come into your surgery to let you do that. So definitely ask, but don't be disheartened if you get some no's. Not everyone is comfortable with their dentistry being watched. I know some great dentists who still to this day will not allow anyone to shadow them because it's not comfortable, and that's fine. That's cool. Let's make peace with that. But still, get your message out there that I am hungry to watch someone, and definitely find those opportunities, even if you have to take sacrifice a day, sacrifice some pay, any way you can to get that experience is invaluable. Shadowing for me as a young dentist is great, and I still am looking for opportunities to shadow now and again, and I love it.
Yeah, 100%. I took so much from it, and I was already in the practice at that point, but it definitely helped me integrate or transition even better into that role of private practice, or high-end sort of specialist referral private practice. And you get so much more out of it than that alternate Wednesday or whatever it is that you lose from your other work. I think definitely worth doing.
My final question for you, Rupert, is, in your journey, how long did it take for you to come to a point to feel confident to be like, you know what, I'm cool to be associated as the dentist who loves dentures, and I'm proud of the dentures, and here's my photos of my impressions, because you know what, I'm proud of my impressions, and they look good, and Rupert, they're amazing. So how long did it take you, or how can you, it doesn't matter how long it takes anyone, it's more about reaching that stage. So on that journey of development, how can dentists listen to this, expedite their development in a way to find their niche, and then be proud of their niche and be able to share their niche? Because like I said, most people are afraid to show their work. So it takes a lot of steps, sacrifice and hard work to get to a stage where you've now created a niche. And everyone knows you're awesome at a lot of things, but especially dentures, you are known for it. So how do you get known for a certain thing? How do you become comfortable in your skin to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one, really. In terms of the social media stuff, I never did it with any intention of becoming the denture guy. I made the account. This is something we sort of cruised over. We almost got onto it at the start when I was doing the 6 days kind of thing, and there was a point where I was really, really struggling in practice and things like that, in terms of just the blasting of NHS and things like that. It just wasn't for me. And I'd have these bits where you start to follow a bit more on Instagram, and we talked about it in our other episode. I do a lot of landscape photography and all that kind of stuff, and my normal Instagram was getting filled up with George the dentist doing remarkable things and whatever, and I was like, some days I don't want to look at this, so I'm going to make another Instagram. I'm going to make Dentist Rupert, just so that I can unfollow it all from this and follow it on that. And if I don't want to look at teeth that day, I can switch over, and I can look at lovely pictures of the mountains in China or whatever it is. And that's what I did. And then it was the odd story, posted the odd story picture of an impression or whatever, and then Impression Club became a thing. Someone else tagged it first. I didn't come up with it. Someone else tagged it, and I thought, I'm having that. That's good. It just started a little bit like that. And then I did it stories first. Like dip a toe in the water, right? Because they disappear after a while, so it's fine. And it got some traction, and people wanted to started asking questions. I was like, okay, people, one, are interested, because you don't think that someone's going to care about primary impression of a dentures patient or something, and they respect my opinion and want to know. So I thought, you know what, go on then. As you say, still first case is terrifying, right? But it was, that was sort of it, really. I thought, people actually do care, and people want to hear about it, so I'm gonna go for it. And it started off slowly, and a lot of the pictures were horrendous, and then you go and do Manesh Patel's course and learn how to take them properly. And shout out to Focus, as everyone does. And I think just take it like that. But I don't know, the weird thing is I always think I did the the Drill podcast. I don't know if you've heard that one. The two chaps, fourth years at King's, and they were asking me about running a successful dental social media account. And I just said, I had no intention of doing it. I think the weird thing is that people that you go out and you go, I want to be an Instagram dentist. So I don't really know about that, because it just sort of again happened by accident, probably in November. And I think it's just start steady, have some stuff banged up, and just do it because you enjoy it. It makes me enjoy my work more. I think even though I get a lot of questions, how do you have all the time for all the live sessions and the podcasts and all this? It's probably the same for yourself. That's actually my favorite part of the week. I love so much my Tuesday nights where I get to call up some epic dentist from wherever and have a chat with them for an hour about teeth, because we're both the same. We're both a bit geeky really and enjoy teeth maybe a little bit too much, but it fuels my passion for it. I had the passion in the first place, but it just fuels it and keeps driving it on. So I think doing it for the right reasons is really important as well.
I totally agree. And I think just to remind everyone, the way this podcast started was I mean, the whole overarching theme is sharing, because I was driving to Oxford, back to London, to Oxford to London, and every time I was driving, I was speaking to a new dentist, telling them about my experiences in Singapore as a dentist, and therefore it got very laborious, and eventually I was like, how can I record it on a voice recording and just put it out there? Oh, there's these things called podcasts exist. So essentially, I was sharing my experiences, and then I was sharing some other people's experiences, and then that's how it grew. And in your case, you were sharing your impressions, you were sharing your enjoyment of dentistry, and so the lesson here is share. I'm not saying give up dentistry and become a content creator or anything. I'm just saying just share. And if nothing comes of it, doesn't matter. Do it because you love to share, and you will help someone else who may be a few steps behind what you're sharing to figure out, oh, if I just now start using polyeth as my temporary cement for my temporary onlays, I might get better success than not. And then you little nuggets, not everyone knows what you know. And you have to be comfortable with that even though you, the listener right now, the watcher right now, even though you feel as though you don't know everything, no one knows everything, you can still contribute to our community of learning. And therefore, the answer is share. Don't be afraid to share.
And that's the beauty of doing it on Instagram, really, is that everyone's there for the same reasons. We're all just sitting there trying to get little tidbits, and some people want to sit there and absorb it all. Like, that's what I was doing at the start, just absorbing it all. That's fine. And as you say, we're all going to have something. We're all going to have a tip that someone else maybe doesn't do, or not even maybe a new tip. We maybe just say it differently, and other people that resonates with people in a different way, and things like that. So it's even just so sometimes true. How you put it across, which is important. And the funny thing with your story, and I remember you talked about that with how the podcast started, is it's exactly the same as how the live session started, because I'd get lots of DMs and I'd get the same few DMs. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to make some videos, and I may as well do them on a live with my technician, and we'll run through 5 different cases and answer them all. It's an FAQ. So yeah, I think just go with it and just share. If people are asking you the same stuff, it probably means that people want to listen to it, right?
Amazing. You're so right. Rupert, it's been a pleasure as always. You're very welcome, Protrusive and alumni of this podcast. Guys, please check out Impression Club, just his Instagram account, but also the podcast, the newsletter. It is full of absolute gems, as we say. So Rupert, my friend, thank you for making time for this. Thanks for sharing your journey. Again, back to sharing. Thank you for sharing your journey. I'm sure that will help a lot of people.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks again for having me on, and I'll catch you soon.
There we have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Rupert Monkhouse. Listen, if you found this to be inspiring or uplifting, or there was a nugget in there which you really thought, yes, you know what, I needed to hear that today, then please, can you say your thanks by going on iTunes or Apple and Spotify and giving me a rating of your choice, ideally 5 if you thought so, but please do rate the show. That's how other people, other dentists around the world can find out about Protrusive, so we can share the love with everyone. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next episode, which will be a clinical one. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to keep it a surprise, but it's one I promised quite a while ago, and I've been, holding it as like a little trump card. Put it that way. I've got a little trump card in my pocket, and I'm about to take it out. So catch the next episode, same time, same place. Thank you so much.